Okay, so no long talks, I will get right into the build guide. So, Ice Spikes Blizzard. Your entire damage comes from the glacial aspect, like all of it. And that's why we use a two-hander. So it says when you cast Blizzard, this will periodically spawn exploding ice spikes that deal X amount of damage and that deals extra damage to frozen enemies. This synergizes extremely well with another legendary aspect power, and that's the Frozen Tundra one. And the last line says your ice spikes have a 50% increased explosion radius. This works for the Blizzard ice spikes, for all of them. And there's also another one, the Frozen Wake aspect. Your ice spikes chill enemies for 10%. However, we do not need that, we don't use it. Even though it works for Blizzard ice spikes and Deep Freeze ice spikes. And the reason for that is we do basically insta-freeze enemy monsters all the time. Because every application of Blizzard can overlap and chills enemies faster and faster, and they get basically frozen in 1 second. Okay, so quick rundown of why this build is so good. You don't need any points or need to max out any DPS abilities. Since all of our damage is coming from this, we have a lot of freedom in our passive tree and can go full into passive nodes and defense. You can max out ice armor, you can max out teleport, right? You can max out these nodes. And I would say this is like one of the most tanky builds that Zogs can have just because of that freedom. The way we scale our damage is crowd control damage, vulnerable damage, crit chance, damage with cold. Yeah, that's basically it. This is my gear. Cooldown reduction and armor is needed on helmet as well as life. Here as well, go full defense. You don't need damage. This is your crit chance, source and attack speed. Here we use temerity. It is actually really nice quality of life. That barrier you can always have a barrier up basically on demand when you press a potion. And you have some conditional effects from your Paragon tree and as well as legendary effects like this one. Deal increased damage while you have a barrier, take reduced damage while you have a barrier. So this is really nice to have, but you do not need it necessarily. I will show that in a second. Boots. Exploiters, 20% increased crowd control duration means 20% longer freezes. And every time monsters become unstoppable, it's basically elite monsters. After they get frozen 2 times in a row, you do tons of extra damage to them. And yeah, we use a two-hander because it gives 100% extra effect to your legendary power glacial. And basically the best in slots that are close damage, vulnerable damage, crit damage, and raw intelligence. Here we do need mana cost reduction, and let me see. I have actually made a max for a complete build guide for this, and this is basically the ideal perfect gear setup. Link is in the description down below, you can join that, there's everything in there, Paragon, skill tree, everything completely how I have it set up and how I cleared my 85 with it, Nightmare Dungeon. But you want defense skills, mana cost reduction, cooldown reduction. That's basically top notch what you want on there. Definitely check this out. This is really nice, this website. Shout out to Maxwell for that. Their build site is really well done, especially for the Paragon tree. So this ring right here, I want to talk a little bit about this, is basically best in slot, the Umbral power. And the reason for that is every chill apply you apply to a monster already procs the 4 mana. So basically until a monster gets frozen, you proc the 4 mana multiple times per enemy. And if you have a bunch of enemies stacked up on top of each other, you will have like crazy mana sustain, like your mana will go up and down, up and down, up and down, like it will instantly refill all the time. However, obviously it doesn't work on bosses. So what you can do is use an alternative ring with Prodigy. Extremely strong for this build because you have a lot of cooldowns: Flame Shield, Ice Blade, Deep Freeze, Ice Armor and Teleport. 5 of your abilities have cooldowns. This is like perma sustain on single target where you can constantly spam your Blizzard to proc those ice spikes. And I actually do a ton of damage with this build, like when an elite enemy is frozen and they're vulnerable, right now my ice spikes deal 700,000 damage like each, and you can proc a ton of them. Like there's so much overlap with the other 50% AoE radius legendary aspect that you can delete, absolutely annihilate like big HP targets or big mobs. Can actually show that in action right here a bit. You see that? And every single one of them in the map enemy is frozen and is vulnerable, can crit up to 700,000 damage. The build itself is extremely good for clear AoE farming, fast dungeon farming, and extremely tanky. Like this is one of the tankiest builds you can possibly have, just because of the fact that you can have so much freedom on speccing into defense on your passive tree and Paragon tree, because you scale your entire damage off this power here. That's also the reason why we do not need any points in Blizzard. That's not where damage comes from. It's all of it is the legendary power. These are my enchantments: Frozen Orb and Ice Blade. The reason for that is Frozen Orb makes groups of monsters vulnerable for me. I need to have that, or else I can't really like make vulnerable mobs, like big packs of them doing dungeon clear. Ice Blades is for single target or big HP targets. Also both of them to proc vulnerable. I had a lot of people asking me why I'm not using ice shards, and that's because a lot of my... Actually, I was using this at the very start and I switched it off because ice shard damage fell off compared to my ice spikes damage. Also, the major flaw of ice shards is, even if an entire pack of mobs are frozen, you can not proc vulnerability on them. And that's the reason why I switched it off to Frozen Orb instead. The only other option I could think of going is like Frost Nova with Mystical Frost Nova. That could work, but is how do I say it? It's like less chill to play, right? Because with Frozen Orb everything is passive. Like I created this build in a way that it's super chill to play. Quite literally chill build, right? No, but really, it's a really laid back playstyle, and it's super enjoyable. And the reason for that is if you're an ice shard sorcerer, you need to aim at enemy monsters, right? And it takes a lot of maintenance, like to play the build really well. And it's frustrating when your ice shards not hit an enemy that's like constantly moving around through. You don't have this issue, like you just spam your blizzards like that and run. If you spam your blizzard, run. And a really high benefit of this playstyle is not only because it's super easy to play. Your blizzards last 12 seconds, right? You don't want this, you don't want the mage blizzard, so it makes them last longer, which also increases the duration of your ice spikes. And this leads into that you can basically off-screen farm the entire content you want. You spam down one blizzard, get running in. Blizzard running, blizzard run, blizzard run, blizzard run, right? And this creates a really high XP per hour clear speed build. The other super high benefit of this build is it's super tanky. You have so much freedom into having defensive cooldowns. You have 4-second immunity here, 2-second immunity there. You have really high damage reduction and half a second immunity from teleport. It's super strong for PvP. Like people who approach me, they're constantly dying. They also get like frozen all the time. So really nice there too. Lastly, I want to talk about my Paragon tree. First off, there is... where is it? Can't find it. Ah, this one, adapt, never mind. So, there's this reglyph, mastery skills have 20% increased area. You actually don't need that for this build. All it does is makes your blizzard radius a little bit bigger, which helps in instantly freezing big packs of mobs, but it does not increase your ice spikes AoE. So we don't really need to use that. So first part is spec into damage, defense, control, and take all dexterity nodes you can get. Here's more damage, and you path towards the Frigid Fate one. You do not need lucky hit with this build, so we don't take this. Here we take Frostbite and get every willpower node possible, also more damage and vulnerable damage. Next board is Icefall. Do definitely take this. This is like extremely good. This can stack on every mob you kill, so you can have like 8,000 barrier up all the time as long as you're killing stuff. It's really strong, this legendary node. Here we take Reinforced, so we get more damage reduction and a little bit of extra damage. Like I said, we are able to scale a lot of damage reduction with this build. It's really nice to be tanky and like get into a pack of monsters, multiple elites, and not instantly die, right? Here we take more damage reduction. Here's also more chill application. This allows us to freeze monsters even faster. The next board we take is Enchantment Master. Really nice quality of life, this node. Makes your ice blades spawn faster. Instead of 40 seconds, it's 33. And this is 24% chance for extra frozen orbs. And instead of 20%. Same for other stuff like Flame Shield is 100 seconds instead of 120, etc. So here we take Unleash, basically because the secondary effect after spending 50 mana, you deal increased damage, gain increased mana regen. That's really nice for this build to have. And on the last board, the Burning Instinct one, because it like has the strongest defense nodes for sorcerers in our build. That's flat out damage reduction and armor, and everybody knows how strong armor is, right? Key passive. I started using Shatter because my build is already really well set up and I have resource generation stuff and a 4 mana Umbral Ring. If you don't have that, you can comfortably switch this out to Avalanche. Gives you a lot of extra sustain, but if you have enough sustain, you can use Shatter instead for more damage. Yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to say, I guess. Like I said, look at the max rebuild guide I put up. It's really nice. Like, I hope everything there can be answered what you want. Actually, there's temerity. Like, if you don't have these pants, you can switch them out with like generic high damage reduction pants. This is always a really strong viable option if you want. Temerity is for the ease of play, but this could be for endgame even stronger. Who knows? For like a tier up 100 to not get instantly one shot popped. But anyway, if you have questions, please comments down below. I'm also streaming live on Twitch all the time. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the build guide. And for anyone asking, this mount is from PvP. Because I can easily kill almost anyone in PvP, it's super strong. Everybody who approaches me gets like instantly frozen, and if they're like unstoppable, I can get unstoppable too, like a lot more than most other people can because of Flame Shield and Deep Freeze.
You are weak and foolish.
And yeah, that's
You are
basically
weak
it.
and foolish.